The long coach had been rolling maybe 4 minutes past the gatehouse when a woman I had never seen before dropped into the seat beside me, took my hand in both of hers, and said low and fast, "Please don't pull away. You're my husband for the next 3 hours." I looked at her. Green skin, the deep sage of the highland orc clans. 2 small ivory tusks caught her lower lip when she pressed her mouth shut. Black hair, thick, half-braided down one shoulder in the old bard plait, silver rings threaded through the weave. A traveler's cloak, plain wool, dyed the color of border pines. Panic held very carefully behind a very still face. Then I looked past her, 3 rows back, at the tall orc who had just boarded and was scanning the carriage with a smile that didn't reach anywhere near his eyes. And somehow, without one word of explanation, I understood that this stranger needed me. So I turned my hand palm up under hers, laced my fingers through her fingers, and said, loud enough to carry down the aisle, "There you are. I saved you a seat." That is how I met my wife. Let me back up. My name is Miles Corbin. I am 34 winters old, and I earn my bread as a road healer on the northern reach of the great coach line. Battle menders, some call us. Wound tenders. Chirurgeons of the long road. I ride between towns and stop wherever the coaches stop, tending to travelers thrown from horses, gored by wild boar, gashed open by bandits, burned by kettle fires at the coaching inns. I mend the belly sick, the fevered, the frostbit. I do it because I am steady in the moments other men lose their footing. And I do it because my hands do not shake. They never have. That is the only useful thing about being a man who feels everything on the inside and shows almost none of it on the outside. I was on the long coach that afternoon because of my father. My father worked this exact coach line for 30 years. He was a coach warden, the man who rode up front beside the driver, kept watch on the road, knew every way station by the smell of its smoke, and every regular passenger by the sound of their footfall on the step. He wore a gray warden's cloak that always smelled faintly of pipe leaf and horse oil. He kept a small ledger in his breast pocket where he wrote down the name of every soul who boarded, orc and human alike, and marked a little cross beside the ones he had walked all the way to their doors at the far end of the ride. He used to say his whole life came down to one thing. "Miles," he would tell me, "I make sure strangers get home safe. That is it. Does not matter who they are, does not matter where they are bound. While they are on my coach, they are mine to look after." He died 3 winters ago on an ordinary market day. Every year, on the anniversary of his passing, I ride his line from the far northern gate all the way to the southern crossroads and back again. Alone, I wear his handfasting band on my right hand, not my left, because I have no right to the meaning of the left, just to feel him near me for a few hours. That is who I was when Elyza sat down. A numb man riding his dead father's coach. Because I will be honest with you about the shape I was in. After my father died, something inside me simply went cold. Not sad, cold. My wife at the time, Rayella, watched me go somewhere she could not follow, and after a year of sleeping beside a man who did not seem to breathe on his own anymore, she left. She was not wrong to. She was not cruel about it, either. On the last morning she told me, quiet, at the door, "You disappeared, Miles. You are still walking around inside your skin. But you left 2 winters ago and you never came back." I did not argue with her. She was right. I had become very good at keeping strangers alive and completely useless at being alive myself. Before I tell you how a woman I had known for the length of a boiled egg ended up being my whole life, do me a small kindness. If you believe the best thing that ever happened to you can walk in through the door the very moment you have stopped looking for anything at all, tap that subscribe button below. This channel is full of stories exactly like this one, and I would hate for you to miss the next. Now, back to the coach. The orc 3 rows back had a name, though I did not know it yet. Graz. Graz Ironjaw, of the Highland Bloodpine clan, cousin to lords and better dressed than any traveler on that coach. He wore riding leathers stitched with silver thread and a wolf fur mantle that caught the coach lantern light like frost. Even seated, his shoulders filled a row. Orc Lord broad, Orc Lord tall, and he carried himself like a man who had never been told no in a room he cared about. He came down the aisle. Of course he did. Men like that always come over. They cannot bear to see a woman who used to belong to them holding another man's hand without walking up close to confirm it with their own eyes. Elyza. He stopped at our row. The name came out of him soft, easy. The way you say the name of a thing you still consider yours. The smile he wore was a display of teeth and nothing else. I thought that was you. Small world. You are bound for the wedding also, I would guess. Graz. Her voice was steady. Only I could feel how hard she was squeezing my hand under the fold of my cloak. I am. His eyes flicked. To me. To our laced fingers. To the plain band on my right hand, which he could not have read the meaning of. And back to her. And this? Here is the part I still cannot fully explain, because I am not a fast man and I am not a liar, and the calm I carry is the calm of a man who deals in facts. But something about the way this stranger had said please, and something about the way this Graz was looking at her, as though she were a thing he still had some claim on, made me do a thing I had never done in my life. I slid my father's handfasting band off my right hand. Under the cover of the seat back in front of us, where no eye above could see, I pressed the band into Elyza's palm and closed her fingers around it. Then I said, easy as anything, I am the husband. Miles, I put my arm along the back of her seat, unhurried, the way a man does when the woman beside him is his own and he has nothing to hurry about. She has told me exactly nothing about a wedding, so I take it is someone she would rather not talk about. Graz, was it? I watched her thumb find the band in her palm and slip it onto her own finger, warm from my hand, and lift her hand, just slightly. Just enough. Graz's eyes went to it. A hand-fasting band. On the finger of an orc woman. Placed there by a human man. I watched his whole face recalculate. Now, I should tell you something. Hand-fastings between orcs and humans are not forbidden. Not exactly. Not in any law I could name you. But they are the sort of thing that makes a whole clan go quiet at the naming of them. The sort of thing mothers do not brag about. The sort of thing that gets muttered about in the low tables of a hall while the high tables pretend not to have noticed. In the border country where Elyza and I both had our roots, orcs and humans traded, drank in the same inns, marched under the same banners when the goblin raids came down out of the crags. But we did not marry each other. Not often. Not comfortably. When one couple did, the whole border remembered it for a generation. So when Graz saw a plain band on Elyza's finger and a plain human beside her wearing the calm of a man who belonged there, something behind his eyes went from certain to unsteady in the space of one breath. Husband, he said. He tried the word. It came out flat. Elyza, you did not mention you had been handfasted. I do not mention many things to you anymore, Graz, she said. That is rather the point of it. He stood there a moment longer, that smile souring on him. Then he said, well, congratulations then. I will leave you 2 turtle doves to it. And he made turtle doves sound like an insult in a way I have to admit was skillfully done, and he turned and went back to his seat 3 rows up, where I now saw a woman waiting for him. Younger, sleek, an orc as well, but of a lowland house, glossy-haired, half his age, folded into a fur wrap she did not need. She said something to him under her breath as he sat down. He did not answer her. Beside me, Elyza let out a breath that shook at the very end of it. She did not let go of my hand. "I am so sorry," she whispered. Her voice was very small, for a woman with tusks. I saw him bored and I panicked. I have been dreading 3 hours in a coach with that man for the better part of a fortnight. And there he was. And you were the only person sitting alone who looked, she stopped, who looked kind. "I am so sorry. Give me a moment and I will move, and give your band back, and pretend this never, keep the band on for now," I said quietly. "He is watching. In the window." She lifted her eyes. Sure enough. In the dark glass of the coach window, Graz's reflection had its gaze fixed on the back of our row. "You picked a husband," I said. "You are stuck with me at least until he stops looking. Might as well tell me what I have been handfasted into." She almost laughed. It came out wet. And because we had 3 hours ahead of us and a lie to keep standing, and because sometimes it is easiest to tell the truth to a stranger you will never see again, Elyza told me everything. Her name, she said, was Elyza Wenwyd. 30 winters old, bard taught, clan raised, now living in the border town of Ashenfen, where she taught the small ones of both peoples, orc and human children in the same schoolroom, the old string instruments and the older songs. She had been betrothed to Graz Ironjaw for 2 years. That betrothal had broken 8 moons ago, 3 weeks before the handfasting day, and in the 8 moons since, in every hall and every alehouse and every clan gather across 2 provinces, one story about that broken betrothal had been told and retold until it hardened into the shape of a truth. The story went like this. Elyza Wenwyd was unstable. Elyza Wenwyd was cruel. Elyza Wenwyd had betrayed a good, honest orc lord who had done nothing but love her. She had lain with someone else. The identity of the someone else varied depending on which teller had the tongue, and when she was caught out, she had broken off the handfasting 3 weeks before the day itself, humiliating Graz and his whole line in front of the clans. She was the kin breaker, the vow shaker, the bad luck bride. "Everyone believes it," Elyza said. She was turning the band on her finger, slowly, like a woman worrying a rosary. "His clan, our friends, half of my own clan. The women I grew up singing with will not sit beside me at feasts anymore. My mother's own sister has not spoken to me since midwinter. I walk into any hall between the Ashen and the Redstones, and I feel it. The little silence. The way the singing thins around me. In orc country, kinbreaker is not just a word. It is a mark. It sticks to your name for 2 generations." She looked at the seat back in front of us. "None of it is true." I waited. "He was the one who broke faith," she said. "For most of the 2nd year. With a girl from the lowland Clearwaters. I found out in a way I do not want to describe on a coach with strangers listening. I broke the betrothal, and in the time it took me to walk home from his lodge and pack the things he had given me back into the chest they came in, he had already sent riders to his uncle's. By the next dawn, half the province had heard a version of the story where I was the traitor and he was the wronged man. By the time I understood what was happening, I was the monster, and he was the poor lord everyone felt sorry for. "So set it right," I said. "Tell them the truth." She shook her head. And here is where the story stopped being simple. "I cannot," she said. "The wedding I am bound for, the one he is bound for, it is not his wedding. It is my little sister's, my sister Katja. And she is being handfasted to Graz's cousin, Beric. The 2 clans are being joined by this match, the Ironjaws and the Wenwyds. Katja has wanted this since she was 12. She loves Beric. He loves her back. He is a good orc. He is nothing like his cousin. But he is his cousin's cousin, And if I stand up in the middle of that feast and tell the whole clan what Graz truly did, if I set his reputation on fire the week of my sister's handfasting, I do not just hurt Graz. I set a bomb in the middle of Katya's binding into that family on the happiest day of her life. Barak's mother would break the match. I know it in my bones. She loves her nephew more than she loves the truth. She looked at me. Her eyes were very bright. So I ate it. I let them all think I am the crazy kinbreaker who broke a good orc's heart. Because the only way to defend myself is to blow apart my sister's future. I have spent 8 moons being the villain in a story I did not write in order to protect a girl I would die for. And now I have to go and sit at that binding feast and smile while a whole hall pities Graz Ironjaw and whispers about me. And I could not walk in there alone. I could not give them the picture they were all waiting for. Poor unstable Elyza, still single, still bitter, still gnawing on her own name. So I grabbed a stranger and called him my husband. I am not proud of it, but there it is. Her voice cracked at the end. I sat with that for a long moment. The long coach rocked. Fields went past the window in the gray afternoon light, half fallow, half turned, the tall stalk stubble of some crop I did not know the name of. And something in me, the switched-off thing, the part of me that had been dark for 3 winters, flickered, because I knew about swallowing a truth to protect someone. I knew about being calm on the outside while something enormous went on underneath. And I knew, better than almost any other man I had ever met, what it costs to disappear inside your own life while you are still walking around in it. My father used to work this coach line, I heard myself say. 30 years. He was the coach warden. She turned her head. He said his whole trade came down to making sure strangers got home safe. That was his rule. It did not matter who they were. Orc or human, lord or beggar, drunk or grieving. If they set foot on his coach, he had them until the far door. I am on this coach today because he died 3 winters ago, and I ride his line every year on the day. And I have spent those 3 winters being about as switched off as a man can be and still have a pulse. I turned my hand over. The bare hand now. The band on hers. So here is what I think. I think you are not the villain in anybody's story. I think you are the only decent person in a hall full of people who let a liar tell them what to believe. And I think for the next 3 hours, you are going to stop apologizing to me, and we are going to be the most convincing hand-fasted couple this coach has ever carried. My father would have liked that. Looking after one more stranger on his line. She looked at me for a long moment. The kind of look where a person is deciding whether the thing they are seeing is real. Then she said, "You are a very strange man, Miles, I have been told." I tried to smile. It came out crooked. It had been a while. "Now," I said, "if we are handfasted, I should know how we met. Graz is going to ask." Men like that always circle back. And so, for 3 hours, we built a handfasting. We invented it detail by detail, quiet, our heads close together, laughing under our breath the way conspirators do when the crime is small and the danger is real. Where we had met, at the Ashenfin border market 3 summers ago, we decided, because it was a place both of us actually knew, and because if Graz asked, either of us could name a stall. How we had met, she had cut her hand on a badly mended kettle, we decided. And I had been the road healer on duty that day, and I had wrapped it for her, and she had thanked me by playing me a tune on the fiddle strapped across her back, and I had, of course, been undone. "Very tidy," she said. "Very neat. What did you think of the tune?" "I thought it was the loveliest thing I had ever heard," I said. Obviously, how long we had been handfasted, 1 full turn of the year. Where we lived, a small stone cottage on the western edge of Ashenfin, with a lean-to on the back where I saw patience on the days I was not on the road, and a garden where she grew the herbs I needed and a few she needed for her strings. Her family's response, we agreed, had been complicated, but had settled. Her mother had wept the first time she saw a human at their supper table, but had, on the third visit, pressed a jar of pickled plums into my hands as I left. Her father had said nothing for a full moon, and then, one evening, had asked me to help him mend a fence post. That, we agreed, had been the moment I understood I was in. My family, we agreed, had been simpler. My mother had died young. My father was gone now 3 winters. My only living kin was an aunt in the far south who had written me a letter the length of a scroll when she heard I had been handfasted to an orc and then had, at the very end of the scroll, written, "But if she is good to you, boy, that is all I care about. Bring her at midsummer." That, we agreed, had happened, and my aunt had loved her and had asked her to play the fiddle at the midsummer feast. "Do I play the fiddle?" I said. "You play a little," she said. "I taught you. You are not very good. You are earnest about it." That sounds correct. But somewhere in the inventing, and I could not tell you the moment it happened, only that it happened, we stopped inventing and started actually talking. Really talking. The way you only can with a stranger whose eyes are the wrong color from anyone in your kin, whose whole shape is not the shape of anyone you have loved before, whose voice does not carry the exhaustion of any argument you have already had 1,000 times. The way you only can when none of it is supposed to matter. She told me about Katya, about how their mother had been sick, on and off, since Katya was 6, and how Elyza had more or less raised her sister the last 5 of those years, taught her to plait her hair and to hold a bow. She told me Katya was small for an orc, quiet, more like their human grandmother than either parent. She told me Katya had cried on Elyza's shoulder the night before Elyza left for this coach and had said, "I know it is not fair to ask you to come. I know what they will say. Please come anyway. I need my sister in that hall more than I need my dignity." And that was why Elyza was on the coach at all. That was why she had not simply stayed home. I told her about my father. The pipe leaf, the horse oil. The way he could name a regular passenger by the sound of a footfall on the coach step. The story he used to tell about a woman he had walked 7 miles through a blizzard to make sure she got to her sister's sickbed on time. I told her about my mother, who had died when I was 11, and how my father had raised me alone after that, and how the year after her death he had taken every one of his coach runs with me, tucked in beside him in a blanket at the driver's bench, because he did not know what else to do with a boy that grief-sick. She told me she was a bard, that she taught the small ones fiddle and low lyre and the old orc walking songs, the ones every child in the border country learned before they learned their own name. That in the last 8 moons her work had been the only thing keeping her mind above water. That she taught orc children and human children in the same room, together, because the border town paid her to, and because she believed in it, and because the little ones did not yet know they were supposed to be uncomfortable around each other. I told her about the calls that stay with you, the ones you carry the rest of your life, the road healer's private inheritance, the faces you could not save. I did not name the worst one out loud. I only said, "There is one from 4 winters ago I still see when I close my eyes." She did not flinch. She did not rush to say something comforting. She just let it sit. The way you let a hard thing be as big as it is. Then she said, "That is why you are steady, is it not? Somebody has to be the one who does not flinch. So it might as well be the man whose hands do not shake." Nobody had ever put it that gently. Rayella used to call it being switched off, not unkindly, at the end, just tiredly, in the way of a woman who had run out of other words. Elyza, a stranger of 2 hours, of another people, of a name I could not have spelled that morning, looked at exactly the same thing in me, and called it steady. 2 words for one man. Only one of them made me want to keep living inside my own skin. By the second hour, I knew that she took her tea black and bitter, the way orcs of the highlands take it. And she knew that I did not take tea at all and drank only water on coach runs, because my father had said a healer with a full bladder was of no use to a bleeding stranger. She knew that I hummed without knowing it when I was concentrating on a wound. I knew that she hummed without knowing it when she was afraid, a little tuneless thing. An old orc lullaby by the shape of it, the sort of song a mother hums to a small one at the edge of sleep. She had been humming it since Graz walked past. At some point, I could not tell you when, her shoulder came to rest against mine. Neither of us moved it away. At some point, I could not tell you when, Graz got up and walked past us on the way to the front of the coach, ostensibly to fetch a jug from the driver's box. He stopped at our row. He rested one hand on the seat back, casual as anything, and said, "So, how long have you two been handfasted again?" Elyza and I answered in perfect overlap, without so much as a look. A year come the equinox. We had discussed the equinox. We had discussed the tune of the answer. We had discussed the little pause that would come before the both of us said the same words at the same time, because a real handfasted couple would not rehearse their answer. They would just know. Graz's smile went thin. He looked at my hand, where it rested over Elyza's. My thumb moved across her knuckles the way, apparently, my thumb had been moving across her knuckles for a year. I had not been aware of it doing so. "Very tidy," Graz said. He moved on. When he was gone, Elyza turned to me, and there was something new in her face. Not panic anymore. Something almost like wonder. "You are good at this," she said. "I am good at staying calm while someone's world is coming apart," I said. "That is the trade." No, her voice was quiet. She was studying me. "You are good at making a person feel safe. That is not the same. That is rarer." She looked down at the band on her finger. "Whose is this? Truly? It is old. It is worn thin at the inside. It matters to you. I could feel it when you put it on my palm. You did not want to take it off." I looked at her. I did not lie. "My father's," I said. "His hand-fasting band. He gave it to me the last winter of his life. I have worn it on my right hand since he passed." She went very still. "Miles, yes, I have been wearing your dead father's hand-fasting band for 2 hours to fool my old betrothed." "You have. I have to give it back." "You cannot. Miles, he spent 30 years looking after strangers on this coach," I said. "I cannot think of one thing he would rather that band was doing today than helping one more traveler get to where they are going. Leave it on, just for the 3 hours. That is all he ever asked of anybody. 3 hours safe. On his line." And Elyza Wenwyd, an orc bard with tusks that caught the coach lantern light and eyes the color of moss under old rainwater, started to cry quietly, for real this time, over a plain iron band that was not hers, given by a stranger who 3 hours before had been the switched-off shell of a man riding a dead father's route. And I did the thing I had not done in 3 winters, the thing Raella had begged me to do the last year we were handfasted, and I had not been able to. I reached across the seat, and I took Elyza's other hand in mine, and I held it while she cried. Not for a moment. Not for a polite 3 breaths. I held it for as long as she needed. I felt her palm shake against mine. I felt her thumb press into the meat of my hand at the base of my own thumb, the way a person does when they are trying to hold themselves inside their own body. I did not look away. I did not think about the way her tusks moved when she took a wet breath. I did not think about any of the small ways she was not a woman of my own people. I just held on. Somewhere behind my ribs, a door that had been rusted shut since a market day 3 winters ago cracked at the hinge. Light came through. Just a sliver. Enough. The 3 hours went too fast after that. We both felt it. The coach began to slow. The driver's horn sounded, the long single note that meant a station town was near. Ashenfin, first stop after the border country crossing, the very town where Elyza's sister was being handfasted, the town where a hall full of clanfolk was waiting to sit in judgment on a woman who had done nothing wrong. Beyond the window, the shoulder of the road turned from stubble field to cottage row. Chimneys smoked. A boy chased a goat. A quiet fell over the two of us. The quiet of two people who both know the small, warm container they have been living in is about to be opened and let the wide, cold world back in. Elyza slid the band off her finger. She held it out to me on her open palm. "Thank you." Her voice was steady again, but only just. "You have no idea what you have done. I am going to walk into that hall and I am going to be all right, because for 3 hours I got to be a woman who was not alone and was not a villain and was not pitied. I will remember this the rest of my life." She pressed the band into my palm and closed my fingers around it. The exact gesture I had made to her 3 hours before, from the other direction. "Go home safe, Miles Corbin. Your father would be proud of you." The coach came to a full stop. She stood. She gathered her cloak and her small traveler's chest and the fiddle case I had not, until that moment, noticed she had wedged under the seat. She gave me one last look, grateful, sad, final, and she started down the aisle toward the door. And I sat there, a switched-off man holding his father's handfasting band, watching the only person who had made him feel alive in 3 winters walk off his father's coach and out of his life forever. I heard my father's voice as clear as the pipe leaf on his cloak. "Miles, I make sure strangers get home safe. While they are on my coach, they are mine to look after." She was not home safe. She was walking into 3 days of a binding feast in a hall full of orcs who thought she was a monster, alone, with 3 hours of borrowed courage in her chest and nothing else to hold on to. She had told me herself. She could not have walked into it alone. She had said it plainly. The only reason she had made it as far as the coach step was the man beside her, and the man beside her was about to sit still and let her go. I grabbed my satchel. I got off the coach. I caught her on the wooden platform outside the station house, where the horses were being checked and the drivers were changing. She turned when she heard me. Startled, I was out of breath. I had no plan. I had no story. I had only the truest thing I could find in my chest. "This is my father's coach line," I said, "and his rule was that you do not leave a person before they are safe. And you have 3 days of that binding feast ahead of you, and I have nothing to be anywhere else for. So here is what I am asking. Let me be your husband for 3 more days. Not a lie this time. A favor from a stranger who does not want to be a stranger. No debt. No promise. Separate rooms. I will sleep in the stable loft if it comes to that. But you should not walk in there alone. And I find I am not ready to be switched off again just yet." I held out my hand. My father's band lay on my palm. "You should hold on to this a little longer. I have a feeling my father is not done looking after you." Elyza looked at the band. She looked at me. She started to laugh and cry at the same time. "You are the strangest man I have ever met." "You keep saying that." "You handfasted me anyway," I said, and this time the smile came out straighter. She took the band. She put it back on her finger. She did not say yes out loud. She did not need to. She just turned toward the station house and said, "Well, husband, let us go and find the trap that is meant to carry us up to the hall. The Wenwyds send a wagon down each afternoon for guests." I picked up her chest. I walked with her into the town of Ashenfin as Elyza Wenwyd's husband. The Wenwyd holdings sat on a low ridge above the town. 3 long houses of dark timber banded with iron, a hall between them roofed in slate, a wall of upright stakes ringing the whole compound, and a broad gate standing open for the binding week. The gate was hung with garlands of ash and rowan. Torches burned in iron cages along the wall, unlit yet in the afternoon light, but stacked and waiting. The wind carried the smell of roasting meat and green wood smoke, and the yeasty stink of the great open vats where the binding ale had been fermenting for a moon. Guests were already arriving. Some came up the ridge road in wagons, some came on horseback. A few rode the great pale drakes, the highland orc lords, sometimes bred for feast parades, saddled up in silver-worked leather, their long necks garlanded like the gate. The people were mostly orcs. There was a scattering of humans. Barrack's mother had human kin down the river. We would learn later, from an old intermarriage 2 generations back. And I stood out enough, walking beside a Wenwyd daughter with my hand at the small of her back, that heads turned all the way up the ridge road. Elyza felt it. I felt her feel it. Her shoulders drew up a hairbreadth. Her breath went shallow. "Look at me," I said, low, not at them. "Just me. 3 hours on a coach, remember? We can do 3 days." She looked at me. She breathed. We walked up the ridge. Katja met us at the gate. I want to describe Katja honestly, because she matters. She was small for an orc, as Elyza had said, no taller than her sister. And Elyza was not tall for her people. And where Elyza's skin was deep sage, Katja's was paler, a green so soft it went almost gray at the temples. Her tusks were slender, filed round in the modern way. Her hair was reddish, unusual among orcs, and she wore it in the double-crown plait of a woman to be bound within the week. When she saw Elyza, her whole face broke open, the way a face does when a person has been holding something for a long time and can finally set it down. She ran the last 3 steps and threw her arms around her sister. She was crying before she had even finished the throw. "You came. You came. You came. I told you I would. They said you would not. Aunt Val said you would not. Barrack's mother said you would not. I did not believe them, but Elyza, I am so glad." Then Katja saw me. She stepped back. She looked at me the whole way up and the whole way down. She looked at Elyza. She looked at the band on Elyza's finger. She said very carefully, "Sister, who is this?" Elyza opened her mouth. I do not know what she was going to say. I do not know if she was going to keep the lie standing there at the gate, in front of her own sister, or if she was going to break it right then and let Katja in on the small trick we had built on a coach 3 hours earlier. I never found out, because at that moment a shape moved at the edge of my vision, and I turned my head, and it was Grod's Ironjaw, arriving at the gate himself with his lowland orc woman on his arm, close enough to hear anything Elyza said. I put my arm around Elyza's waist. I said, "I am Miles Corbin. It is very good to meet you at last, Katja. Your sister has told me you are the only Wenwyd whose opinion she cares about." Katja's eyes went very wide. I felt Elyza's ribs move under my hand as she took a breath. Katja was, whatever else she was, sharp. She was the sister of Elyza Wenwyd. She had grown up in the same clan house as Elyza. She heard the pause. She saw the man beside her sister with a plain iron band on his finger and his hand at her sister's waist. And she saw Grod's Ironjaw walking up the path with his mouth already opening to say something. And she made a choice. "Miles," she said, as though she had heard the name 100 times. "Of course. Come, let me get you 2 to the guest house before the trumpets. Mother is going to want to meet him properly at supper, sister, so you had better warn him what he is walking into." She took Elyza's arm. She walked us straight past Graz without so much as a nod, which, in that country, at that hour, was as loud a statement as a slap. She did not say another word until we were inside the guest house Barrick's family had prepared for the Wenwyd side of the clan. She led us up the stair to a small room at the back. One bed, one small hearth, one window looking out over the ridge, and closed the door behind us. Then she turned to Elyza. "Talk," Elyza told her. I stood by the window while she did it. Not because I wanted to be out of the way, but because it seemed the decent thing to do, to look out over the fields and let two sisters have the small distance in which to say a hard thing. I heard Elyza say the words. I panicked, and I did not know what else to do, and he is a good man, Katya, I am telling you. And I heard Katya, at the end of it, take a long breath. Then Katya said, quietly, sister, please look at me. Do you understand what you have done? I know. You have brought a false husband to my binding week. In front of Graz. I know. You have brought a human false husband to my binding week. In front of all of them. Katya, wait. Katya's voice had a strange thing in it. I did not turn from the window, but I heard it. Sister, I am not angry. I am. Hush a moment. I am not angry. A silence. Then Katya said, do you know what they were saying about you an hour ago in the Great Hall? Do you know what Aunt Val said out loud, while 3 of Barrick's aunts stood at the ale vat and pretended not to listen? She said the poor kinbreaker had probably not even come. That the kinbreaker was too much of a coward. That the kinbreaker would send a letter with an excuse the week of her own sister's binding. Because the kinbreaker had no honor. And then Barrick's mother, sister, who has been kind to me since the day I was betrothed. She looked at Aunt Val, and she said, very softly, I am sure Elyza will come. She loves her sister, and she smiled at me. And then she went back to the ale vat. Katya's voice was uneven. You were coming into a hall where they had already written the story of your evening for you. Poor Elyza. Bitter and empty and alone at her sister's binding. So they could pity you. So they could pity Graz. So they could say poor Graz's one more time and mean it. She took Elyza's hand. And instead you have walked up my ridge with a human man on your arm wearing a hand-fasting band, looking like a woman who has been chosen. You did not know what a gift you gave me, sister. You did not know what a gift you gave yourself. Do not send him back to the town tonight. Do not you dare. You have 3 days here. You take them. I turned from the window then. Katya was looking at me. Miles Corbin, she said. Very steady. Whatever your reasons, whatever the shape of the man you actually are, I am going to trust my sister that you are what she said you are. And I am going to ask you, plainly, orc sister to human brother, keep her safe in there. That is all I ask. She has spent 8 moons defending me. Defend her back. I will, I said. I meant it. I have meant a lot of things in my life. I have meant to save patients I could not save. I have meant to be a husband Ryella could stay handfasted to. I have meant to visit my father more the winter he died. Meaning is not always enough. But I meant this one, and this one, at least, I was equal to. Katya went back downstairs. Elyza and I stood in the small room and looked at each other. Well, she said. Well, there is one bed. I will sleep on the hearthrug. You will not sleep on the hearthrug in a stone room in a highland spring. You will freeze. I have slept on worse. And under worse. And beside worse. Miles, Elyza. She sat down on the edge of the bed. She looked very tired. It was the tired of a woman who had not slept properly in 8 moons and had just been unexpectedly permitted by her own sister to rest. Thank you, she said. Do not thank me yet. We have 3 days. I know, and Graz Ironjaw is going to come for us again. He does not know how to leave a thing alone. I know that also. Good, I said. Then let us go down to supper, and let him see us eat like people who belong together. Supper that first night was in the Wenwyd longhouse. It was not the binding feast itself that would come on the third night in the great hall between the long houses, but it was the first gathering, the welcoming supper for the 2 clans, and it was pointed and it was long. 50 guests at the long benches, torches in every sconce, roasted ox and river fish and dark bread and the binding ale in wooden mugs. A bard at the far end of the hall was already tuning a stringed instrument I did not know the name of. It looked like a low fiddle with too many strings. Elyza's mother met us at the door. I had been prepared to be looked at. I had not been prepared to be looked at by Elyza's mother. She was a tall woman, taller than any orc I had shared a hall with, straight-backed in her middle age, with the same moss-gold eyes as her daughter and none of her daughter's softness. She wore the deep red of the Wenwyd clan mother. She wore a silver band across her brow. She looked at Elyza. She looked at me. She looked at the plain iron band on Elyza's finger. She looked at me again. She did not speak. Elyza said, "Mother, this is Miles. Miles Corbin. He came with me from the border country." Her mother said, in a voice like clear water over cold stone, "Did he?" "Yes. And has he a place at the border country? A trade?" "I am a road healer, madam," I said. My own voice sounded flat and clean in my ears. I made no bow. I inclined my head. Among the highland orcs, a bow is a thing you do only to your own clan mother. Elyza had told me on the ride up. I work the northern coach line. I attend to the injured along the great road. A road healer. Her mother tasted the words. And what is a road healer doing on the arm of my daughter? I looked her in the eye. Loving her, madam, or trying to. She is not the easiest woman to keep up with. The mother did not smile. She did not soften. But she did, very slightly, tilt her head to the side, in a way I had already learned meant, among these people, I have heard you. She said, "Well, come, sit, eat. We will speak more." She turned and led us into the hall. Elyza breathed for the first time in what I suspect was a full minute. "That went about as well as I could have hoped," she said, low, as we followed. Did she believe me? No, she heard you, though. That is her word for it. She heard you. She has not decided. But she heard you. I will take it. We sat at the long bench. Katja put us next to her, and beside Katja sat Beric, her betrothed, a broad, good-humored orc with a laugh that made mugs rattle 3 seats down. Beric shook my hand hard enough to remind me I was among people who had been culled towards strength for 100 generations. He said, "So, Elyza's man. About time. She has been holding out on us. Drink." He pushed a mug of the binding ale toward me. I drank. It tasted like earth and honey and something faintly sharp I could not name. It went down warm. Beric watched me drink it with the expression of a man watching a small experiment. When I set the mug down without coughing, he grinned. Not bad for a chirurgeon. I have tended orcs. I have drunk with orcs. Have you now? When the border fever came through Redgate 3 winters ago, I set up a tent post there for a moon. Half my patients were of your people. He nodded slowly. Redgate, my aunt-in-law lost her son that winter. I know she did. I was with him at the end. He asked me to write his mother a letter. I did. Beric went still. He looked at me a long moment. Then he said, quietly, "Beric," his name was Beric. "She kept that letter under her pillow for a year. She reads it still, on his day. I did not know it was you. He was a brave lad." Beric said nothing for a moment. His eyes were wet. He drank. Then he clapped me on the shoulder, hard enough to knock a smaller man off the bench, and said, "Elyza, where did you find him?" "On a coach," she said. "Ha, best place. Miles Corbin, you will drink with me tonight. Elyza, come here, kiss your sister." Graz was at the far end of the bench. I felt him before I saw him. That particular pressure at the back of the neck a man gets when someone is watching him. I turned my head, unhurried, and there he was, 3 benches down, sitting with his lowland woman and a small clutch of iron jaws. He met my eye. He raised his mug. He smiled with his teeth. I raised mine back. I did not smile with my teeth. I do not have that kind of smile. I have my father's small closed smile, the one he used to give the drunks who caused trouble on his coach, polite, weary, absolutely unimpressed, and I gave Graz that one. He drank first. I drank after. Barrick, beside me, snorted quietly into his mug and said, "Lo, oh good. He hates you already. This is going to be a fine binding week. Is he going to be trouble? He is always trouble. But he is not stupid. He will not do anything at the feast. He knows my mother. My mother is not stupid either. She will be watching." I drank the binding ale. Gros drank his. The bard at the far end of the hall began to sing. Gros caught me alone the next morning. I had gone out at first light to fetch water from the ridge spring because I had grown up doing chores at first light, and I did not know how to be a guest in a great house without doing something with my hands. I filled 2 buckets. I turned to head back to the guest house, and there he was, at the edge of the yard, waiting for me. He was not carrying anything. His hands were empty at his sides. "Road healer," he said. "Iron jaw. A word. You have several. Do you know," he said, "she lay with a merchant's boy from the clear waters 2 summers back? Do you know what you have handfasted yourself to?" I set the buckets down. I straightened up. I looked at him. "Gros," I said, "I have been the road healer on the Northern Line for 7 years. I have watched men and women lie to me about the size of a wound because they were afraid of the size of the truth. I know when a man is telling me a thing because it is true, and I know when a man is telling me a thing because he needs me to believe it. You are the second." Gros's smile went very thin. I know what I am standing beside, Gros. I have spent 3 days finding out. The question is whether every person in that hall behind me is going to keep believing the version of the story that just happens to make you the injured lord. And I would look around if I were you. Barrick's mother did not speak to your lowland woman once at supper last night. Katya walked past you at the gate. Elyza's own mother has taken my measure and has, as I understand it, chosen to reserve judgment. That is more grace than she has given you in 8 moons. People are starting to notice which one of you flinches when the other walks in, and I am the one who does not. So, have I answered your word? I picked up the buckets. I did not raise my voice. I never do. Gros did not answer me. He watched me walk past him with the buckets and did not follow. I did not see him alone again the rest of the week. I walked back into the guest house, and Elyza was awake and dressed and standing at the window with the sun in her hair. She turned when the door opened. Her face was very still. Is he going to leave us alone? For now. For now. He will try one more thing. Men like him always try one more thing. Not at us, at someone he thinks is easier. Katya, or your mother. She nodded. She had known that. She had already known. Miles? Yes. I have to tell you something. I do not know if it is fair to tell you. I have been thinking about it since the coach. Tell me. It stopped being pretend. I set the buckets down again. I turned to face her. For me, she said. I do not know when. Somewhere between the second hour and the third. Somewhere between the moment you told me whose the band was and the moment you got off the coach after me. I know we agreed. No strings, no debt, a favor from a friend. I know I did not have the right to. But I am telling you because you have been decent to me every hour I have known you, and I would not lie about a thing this large. It stopped being pretend. I do not need you to say anything back. I am not asking for anything. I only wanted you to know. I looked at her. The morning sun was in her hair. Her tusks caught the light. The plain iron band on her finger was worn thin at the inside, where 30 years of my father had rubbed it smooth. I said, it stopped being pretend for me somewhere on the coach as well. I do not know exactly when. I think it was the moment you tried to give the band back to me because you could not stand to keep a thing that mattered to me. That is not what a villain does. That is the whole opposite of what a villain does. She did not move. I crossed the small room. I did not touch her yet. I stood close enough that if she wanted to step back, she could. She did not. I have not felt anything all the way through in 3 winters, I said. I feel this, all the way through. She let out a breath. She said, well? I said, well? Neither of us kissed the other. Not that morning. Some things you do not do the morning after a mother has looked at you the way Elyza's mother had. Some things you leave standing at the doorway a little longer, so the wanting can settle into the wood of the frame. I picked up the buckets. I carried them to the water jug in the corner. I said, are you going down to Katya? I am. Then go to your sister. I will find you at midday. She went to the door. She stopped with her hand on the latch. She said, without turning, Miles, yes, thank you for coming down off the coach. She left. The binding dance was on the second night. Not the binding itself, that was the third night, the ceremony proper, with the handcloth and the ale cup and the old words spoken by the clan mother, but the dance was the second night. Every guest in the hall. Every couple. The candles all lit, and the great hearth stacked to its throat, with pine, and the low fiddles going, and the walking drum keeping the pulse the way an orc walking drum does, slow and steady and endless. The bond dance is not a human dance. I want to be plain about that. It is not a dance a human man learns by watching a wedding. It is not even a dance most humans in the border country have ever seen. It is a slow paired dance, a dance of matched steps and inclining shoulders, and a particular quiet holding of hands at the wrist rather than the palm. And the pattern of it is old, older than the 2 provinces, older than the peace. Every orc in that hall had been taught it as a child. Not one human in that hall had. When the bard called the couples to the floor, Elyza went pale. I cannot. You are the sister of the bride. You have to. I mean I cannot. Not that. I mean I cannot with you. You do not know the steps. Teach me. There is not time. Miles, there is time for the first pass. Watch me. I will follow you. She looked at me. She looked at the floor. She looked at Graz, who was of course on the floor already, with his lowland woman, doing the steps perfectly, watching us. She stood up. She held out her wrist. Miles, if you step on me, I will forgive you. If you turn the wrong way in the second pass, I will forgive you. If you leave the floor because you are embarrassed, I will not forgive you. Do you understand me? I understand. Come, I took her wrist. Not her hand, her wrist. The way the dance is meant to be taken. Her pulse beat against my thumb. We walked out to the floor. The whole hall was watching. I could feel it on the back of my neck. Elyza's mother at the high bench. Beric and Katja beside her. Graz Ironjaw across the floor with his mouth in a small hard line. Aunt Val, whoever she was, somewhere behind us. 50 guests, 100 eyes. Elyza looked up at me. She said, very low, look at me. Not at them. Just me. 3 hours on a coach, remember? We can do 3 minutes. She used my own words on me. She said them back to me exactly. I did not think about the steps. I could not have thought about the steps. I did not know them. I looked at her. I felt the pulse in her wrist. I followed the pressure of her fingers on my wrist. And I moved when she moved, and I turned when she turned. And I let her carry the two of us through a dance that was not mine and was not made for me, and was not meant to be danced by a human man in a Highland orc hall in the middle of a binding week. I stepped on her twice. She had warned me she would forgive me. She did. Somewhere in the second pass, when we came around each other in the slow close turn, she leaned her forehead against mine for one breath. Not a kiss, just a breath. Just the resting of one forehead against another, the way orcs do when they mean I am here and you are here, and that is enough. I did not know the meaning of the gesture then. She had not told me. I did it back to her anyway because it was what my body did. I felt the hall breathe. You could feel it. It moved across the hall the way a wind moves across a wheat field. The reweighing. The doubt about the story they had been sold. A woman who was said to be broken, said to be bitter, said to be a kinbreaker who did not know how to love, was walking the bond dance with a human road healer who had stepped on her twice and was still holding her wrist as though the wrist were the last steady thing in the world. I saw Beric's mother, in her seat at the high bench, put her hand to her mouth. I saw a woman, at a side bench I did not know. An older orc, gray at the temples, in the deep cloak of a clan mother, of a clan not our own. Lean over to the woman beside her and murmur something. The woman she murmured to nodded once. Slowly, I saw Graz. Graz was watching us, and Graz was, for the first time all week, alone. His lowland woman had stepped back from him to breathe. He was standing at the edge of the floor with his hands at his sides. He looked, for the length of that dance, like a man who was watching a thing he had thought was his walk away in real time. Not toward another man. Toward the truth. He looked like a man who had told a very good lie for a very long time and had just realized the room was no longer buying it. Elyza said, against my shoulder, they are not staring at me the way they were an hour ago. No, they are not. Miles, yes, I do not think this is pretend for me anymore. I need you to know that. Whatever happens when this week ends. It stopped being pretend somewhere on the coach, and I do not know exactly when. The moment you tried to give the band back. That is when? That is when. We finished the dance. I did not feel switched off for one heartbeat of it. I did not blow up the binding. Neither did Elyza. She had spent 8 moons protecting Katja, and she was not going to stop now, not even with the whole hall reweighing her behind their hands. And I loved her for it. Yes, by the end of 3 days I will say the word, I loved her for it. But something shifted anyway. Quietly, the way real things do. Katja pulled Elyza aside on the last night, in the small hour after the binding cup had been drunk, and said, Sister, I do not know your husband's whole story. I do not know if I have known it any hour of the 3 days he has been under this roof. But he looks at you the way Beric looks at me. Graz never once looked at you that way. Not once. I have been thinking about that all week. It was not the truth. Not the whole truth. But it was a door opening. Sometimes a door opening is enough. We rode home together. The long way. 4 days on the road instead of the 2 the coach would have taken. Neither of us wanted the road to end. We stopped at every way station. We ate slow suppers. We slept in separate rooms because I had said I would, and because a thing that has been built in 2 days should be given the courtesy of a few more days before it is asked to be more than it is. And we talked. We talked the whole way. We talked the way the coach had let us talk, only slower now, and with less at stake, and with more of the truth between us, because we no longer needed to invent anything to fill the space. Nothing happened fast after that. That is how I knew it was real. At one moon, I had learned to tell her students apart by the sound of their fiddles through the shutter of her cottage door. My father's band was still on her hand. Neither of us had spoken of giving it back. At 2 moons, my cup lived on her mantle, and her humming, that little tuneless orc lullaby, had turned into a proper tune, because she was not afraid around me anymore. At 4 moons, Katya came to Elyza's door in tears. Graz Ironjaw had, at last, been undone by his own hand. The lowland woman he had brought to the binding feast had left him. She had left him because she had found out about the merchant's daughter he was courting in a 3rd town while he was courting her, and she had, unlike Elyza, decided to burn the whole thing down on the way out. She had gone to Barrack's mother. She had gone to Aunt Val. She had gone to the clan mothers of 2 provinces. She had, in short, told the truth about a man who had been telling lies for 8 moons, and the truth had, at last, met the story. The whole clan had done the sum backward. They had realized which sister had been telling the truth all along. Elyza never had to detonate a thing. She had protected her sister's binding. And the truth had found daylight anyway, the way it does when you are patient enough to let it, and when the man doing the lying is stupid enough to keep lying to more women than one at a time. Katya's first words at the door were, "I am so sorry. I spent a year believing him. Can you forgive me?" And Elyza, who had swallowed 8 moons of being the villain in order to protect this exact sister, said yes before Katya had finished the sentence. They stood in the doorway of a small stone cottage on the western edge of Ashenfen, and they held each other for a long time. I was inside, at the hearth. I was not part of it. I did not need to be. That night, Elyza came in from the door, and she said, "Miles, yes. I would like to be your wife, not for 3 days, not for 3 hours, for as long as you will have me." I said, "You already are. I have not thought of you as anything else since somewhere on that coach." At 6 moons, I moved my practice down from the northern coach line to the border country. I found rooms in Ashenfen for the days I was not on the road, and I set up my lean-to at the back of Elyza's cottage the way we had once, on a coach, invented I already had. My old team on the northern line came down for the day I opened the lean-to. They said I had changed. They said I laughed now. They said the lights had come back on. I told them my father was not done looking after strangers, and they nodded like men who understood, because half of them had known my father. Half of them had been passengers on his coach when they were boys. At the end of a full turn of the year, Elyza and I stood in the old ash grove above Ashenfen, where the border country has done its handfastings for as long as there has been a border. And the clan mother of Ashenfen, an old human woman named Baron, who had been binding orc and human couples in that grove for 40 years, because Ashenfen is one of the few places where such couples were bound at all, wound the handcloth around our wrists and asked the old questions, and heard our answers and cut the cloth free. Elyza wore my father's band. She had never taken it off. I had never asked her to. When Baron spoke the part about rings, Elyza only held up her hand and smiled, because she had been wearing that band since a coach 4 minutes past the border gate. I bought her a second band. A newer one. Silver, small, plain, in the shape of a running river the way the Ashenfin smiths make them. She wore it beside my father's. But it is the old one she loves. The old iron, my father's band, on the hand of the stranger he had helped me look after. I think about that coach more than she knows. About the numb man I was, riding a dead man's line, so switched off I could keep a stranger alive on the worst afternoon of their lives and could not feel my own heartbeat. About the orc woman who dropped into the seat beside me and grabbed my hand and said, "You are my husband," for the next 3 hours, thinking she needed me to save her. Here is the truth I have never told her, and maybe I never will, because some things are better simply known. She did not need saving. Not really. Elyza Wenwyd is the strongest person I have ever met. She would have walked into that hall alone and survived it. Chin up. The way she had survived the previous 8 moons. She did not grab my hand on that coach because she could not do it without a husband. She grabbed my hand because my father was not done. 30 years he spent making sure strangers got home safe on his line. And 3 years after he died, on his own coach, on the very anniversary of the day I lost him, he reached out one more time and put the exact right stranger in the seat beside the switched-off shell of his son. And he had her take my hand. She thought I was her husband for 3 hours, saving her from her past. She was the one who got me home. If you have ever had a stranger walk into your life at the exact moment you had given up, the right person, the right hour, as though something bigger than luck was steering the road, I want to hear about it, because I do not think those things are ever really an accident. Tell me your story in the comments below. And tell me where in the world you are watching from tonight. I read every one, and it never stops surprising me how far these stories travel. Someone wrote in last week from the deck of a river barge, of all places, and I have not stopped thinking about it since. And be honest with me, before you go. If a stranger had dropped into the seat beside you and whispered, "You are my husband," for the next 3 hours, would you have played along, the way I did? Or would you have pulled your hand back, kept your head down, and let them walk into it alone? There is no wrong answer. There is only the one you would have to live with. If this story moved you even a little, do me one small kindness. Tap that like button so it finds the next person who needs it. Hit subscribe and turn on the notifications, because I am here every week with a new story about the kind of love that shows up exactly when we have stopped believing it will. Ride safe. I am glad you are here.